Salutations, my friends. How are we doing? My name is Freedom Faction, and you guys are tuned into Factions of Freedom. This is episode 216 that I am titled Vaccines, Genetic Alterations, and Depopulation. Simply because and it's becoming even more apparent, guys, I'll go over that throughout the video, or throughout the episode. I don't know why I keep saying video, but it's becoming more and more evident whenever we start looking at some of the things that these people are doing. I put out an article this morning, which kind of sealed the deal. Like I said, it gets to points to where you see too many different articles surface, too many different things come up to where you're just like, look, you got to talk about this. You got to discuss it. So with that being said, I'm going to show you guys this video. Health Department policy. Everyone meets the requirements for the flu vaccine. You'll be given a vaccine even if you have a stubbed toe. And you guys can check out this full video on my actual website here. And I have it put in the bold, and it's titled "Whistleblower for Vaccinations." And basically, what you're hearing right now is the fact that they're coming after us through the medical industry. They're coming at us through an epigenetic level. They're coming at us through a genetic level. They're coming at us from so many different levels. You see, there's just so many different ways that we have to look at how these attacks are coming. And the reason why I wanted to point that out for you guys, and I'll actually go over this article here in a second, the reason why I wanted to point it out for you guys in this way is because I consistently talk about how we are under attack from the future. That's why they're coming out with pre-crime. That's why they're coming out with all kinds of massive surveillance things, IBM Watson. That's why they're coming out with all this different technology and all these different things that seem like they're fantastic, but when really what they're doing is they're subverting our natural God-given rights. They're distorting us. They're denigrating us. They're downgrading us. You see. So whenever we literally have somebody that's in the medical field that's been doing this for, I'm not sure however long, I'll actually look into this myself. But whenever we have somebody coming out from the field talking about how they're going to start unknowingly force vaccinate patients, that shows you that people are really not trying to go along with this system. That shows you that people are not down for this depopulation, dehumanization campaign. I mean, think about it. How many times a year are we hearing about not even babies being killed, but just adverse medical effects, adverse things that happen because people end up taking a flu vaccine or end up taking some kind of shot, some kind of mark, some kind of medical treatment. I mean, even whenever you're looking at the pharmacological big pharma, even whenever you're looking at big pharma, you can tell there's like there's hundreds of different side effects for the one thing that you're trying to clear, or the one problem that you're trying to clear up. You see, AstraZeneca is a name that I see pop up fairly frequently in regards to the medical field and people being subject to either suicidal thoughts, depression, achy joints, bloating, inflation, constipation, all these different things, all these adverse side effects. It's gotten to a point now to where people are like, look, These vaccines are literally killing people. Like they're not doing what they should. And do you know who the main proponent of all of this is? Bill Gates. You guessed it. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Let me go over this article. A whistleblower nurse has described her experience inside a hospital that has taken orders to unknowingly force vaccinate patients with the flu shot. In the video that I showed you guys earlier, where you can see it in the vault after the episode, she describes how the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, has redefined the term biologics. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but being used in hospital consent forms to include vaccines. Since the Affordable Care Act came out, we are now, as nurses, required to ask every single patient when they come to the hospital if you've had your flu vaccine or your pneumococcal vaccine. If you say no to either one of those, in the computer, an order will generate that says we need to give you this vaccine. So here again, we have IBM Watson technology issuing orders to humans. Okay, we have machines saying, okay, cool, this person has not taken this vaccine or this vaccine, so give them this dose, give them this that they need, give them this prescribed medicine. And where else have we seen this happen? In the VA, with the Department of Veteran Affairs, whenever people are literally being turned down at the door. These are people that go across to the country, go across the world to go fight for these freedoms that we have here, allegedly. And they're not even able to get care. They're not even able to get help. You see? So this is where we're also seeing the evidence of technology taking place, or at least taking hold of the medical industry. Let me get back to this article. We don't need to speak to a doctor. It's a hospital policy. It's now a health department policy that we now have to give you the vaccine. The nurse also explains how the new consent to care forms include consent for vaccines, even though patients are unaware that they are granting that consent. And she says right here, when you go to the hospital, if you need surgery, say you need a knee replacement surgery, first they're going to ask you if you've had your vaccines. See, this is how they're trying to depopulate us. This is how they're trying to destroy us at a genetic level, mess with our DNA. I mean, you hear people all the time talking about how their 13-year-old kid or their child will get shots, and then their arm goes numb for like the full day. I mean, I have a video that I'll play for you guys later where I actually mute the clip of a child, a baby, being vaccinated. You see what I'm saying? And this just keeps happening. That's why I'm like, I have to do an episode on this, is because it's becoming more and more prevalent. And I'll do an actual video on it later, because I was starting to do a video over the fact that over pretty much this episode, how we're being attacked at an epigenetic level, how they're trying to modify our DNA, how they're trying to depopulate us with these vaccines, how they're doing all kinds of different things with these GMOs, how they're, like I said, we're being attacked from the future. But one of the things I wanted to point out is the fact that this is all by design. That the fact that they're trying to intentionally dehumanize us. This is why, up until the years, we have had relatively good health. I mean, we've been declining since about, well, we were, I don't want to go on to it, but the point I'm trying to make is that we really need to be very careful and very conscious of the things that we're ingesting, as well as the things that are going on around us. All these things that happen, they bioaccumulate. All of these things that we take in, the poisons, the food, the toxins, the vaccines. I mean, for God's sakes, like I said, we hear about how children get shots and their arms go numb, or in how there's shots that literally make females sterile. It's insane. It is insane. You're going to say no. Then they're going to say, well, you need to sign this consent. If you're going to have surgery, you need to sign a consent. In the consent, there's a word called biogenics, which is also biologics. And if you sign the consent saying, I consent for you to give my biogenics, my biologics, that basically means that you can give them anything that they deem necessary, including vaccines. So if you say that you didn't need to get a flu shot and it's flu season and you sign a consent saying I agree to biologics, they will give you a vaccine even when you're under anesthesia because you already signed the consent. So I urge you guys to definitely check this video out. Read the full thing as well. Go back and, like I said, go research some of these things that are going on, so you yourself actually have the knowledge that this is going on, so that you can visit it. You see, and I don't want to sound like some kind of crazy conspiracy theorist, even though I probably already do. But the point I'm trying to make is that these are satanic people that are just that will try every little thing that they can to try to kill you. If it's not the chemtrails, then it's the vaccines. If it's not the vaccines, then it's the GMO style food, such as McDonald's. And if it's not that, then it's the brainwashing mind control of television. You see, like, we're attacked from all kinds of different levels. And why is vaccines important right now? It's because remember last year, whenever the whole Planned Parenthood scandal came out, those abortuaries, where those witches are. I said witches, not the B word. I tried to make this a family appropriate show. Like I said, educational material. The abortuaries, where they're literally harvesting the. As I have to go on to this next topic, talking about educational material, but these are the facts. But they're essentially harvesting children from all these thousands of babies, these thousands of mothers. I mean, there's millions of babies aborted a day. You see, thousands of children that have fallen prey to it, that have fallen prey to the system and to the beast system of harvesting. Check this out. I have a little bit of a graphic for you guys, and this is cumulative statistics provided by the U.S. Center for Disease Control National Vital Statistics Reports. So the CDC pretty much did a report on the approximate number of African American deaths since 1993, right? And they broke it up into a few different categories: AIDS, violent crimes, accidents, cancer, heart disease, and abortion. So AIDS is roughly 250,000 deaths since 1973. Violent crimes is 350,000. Accidents, 450,000. 2,500,000 cancer deaths, 2,700,000 heart disease deaths, and there's been over 15.5 million abortions since 1973. 15.5. I'm going to let that sink in. AIDS took out 250,000 of us, and we're already aware of how detrimental the AIDS pandemic is to the Black community. But that only took out 250,000 African Americans since 1973. We have aborted 15.5 million babies since then. 15.5 million children. So we can't talk about we and this is what we have to really understand. This isn't racism. This is mind control. This is unilateral warfare. This is depopulation. This is social engineering on a massive scale. This is eugenics. Speaking of eugenics, I would like to take you guys back over here to where I can show you this article that also came out earlier this week, because I'm going to show you guys a series of articles and a series of things today that go over within the past 10 days that I've been able to post on that kind of correlate and explain these things that I'm talking about, because I'm not trying to I'm really not trying to go off into a tangent, but I'm really trying to stick to these points and to these articles and things that I've put up, because this is all surface level stuff that you guys can go back and research yourself. Okay, this is all information that that is publicly and readily accessible, that you have access to, that you can go see if you feel it's appropriate. Okay, these the only reason I'm doing this is to compile it and to show you how many different ways and in which different forms these things are occurring. You see, so right here I have this article where it says, speaking of eugenics, where new vaccines will permanently alter the human DNA. And I'll refer back to this one later on in the actual episode as well, for some of my theories to talk about with you guys. But let's actually read from it. Consider this article in light of the accelerating push to mandate and enforce vaccination across the planet. And I put this out 2 days ago. And what do we hear today about how a whistleblower came out about this forced vaccination? Okay. The reference in the New York Times, 3/9 of 2005 or 2015, protection without vaccine. It describes a frontier of research. Here are the key quotes that illustrate the use of synthetic genes to, quote unquote, protect against disease while changing the genetic makeup of humans. This is not science fiction, and I'll actually talk about this as well, synthetic biology, later on in the video, and how essentially what it's doing is, it's just that. It's altering the genetic makeup of man. They're using all kinds of different things to do it. And it's crazy. It is crazy. But I'll hold off on that. And if you want a perfect example of it, there is no other species naturally that drinks the milk of another animal or of another creature. There's no reason why we should be drinking milk. They tell you it's supposed to give you good bones, but think about that. There is nothing in nature to where it says you don't see zebras drinking goat milk. You don't see monkeys drinking cow milk. You don't see frogs. Well, you do see frogs in spider webs, but the point I'm trying to make is these things that they're trying to do, the mixing of the species, this transhumanist chimera mindset that they're trying to do, and I'll get into that as well. Hybrids, chimeras, and human-animal hybrids, and how they're pretty much doing just this. They're altering the genetic makeup of man. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is a long plan, and we really got to see all the different things that this encompasses, all the different things that come into play whenever we're looking at the subject. So by delivering synthetic genes into the muscles of the experimental monkeys, the scientists are essentially re-engineering the animals to resist disease. The sky's the limit, said Michael Farzan, an immunologist at Scripps and the lead author of the study. And he says, quote, the first human-based trial on this strategy called, and I know I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, immunoprophylaxis by gene transfer, or IGT, is underway. So being able to, what I would suppose is being able to trade your immune system by gene transfer. And this is what CRISPR-Cas9 does. It's a genome editing software or a genome editing product where you're basically able to take the DNA bases, the base pairs of your genetic code, and essentially rewrite them, put them wherever you feel appropriate. And what that is genetic modification at a very, very rudimentary level. And I've talked about this before in some of my Crisis Corner videos with transhumanism. But basically what this is going to do is this is going to allow for, on the epigenetic factor, how things are going to affect our children, their children, and how genes transfer, is we don't know how these mutations are going to affect the human body. You see, this is why autism rates are skyrocketing right now. This is why ADD is off of the off of the charts. This is why we have obesity. This is why we're having so many problems, because as a generation right now, we're dealing with the first wave of all these things that are occurring. You see? So everything that's going on, whenever we're having GMO crops, whenever we're eating McDonald's meat that we know is not meat, what do you think that's going to do to our biology? Like I said before, that bioaccumulates in our body. After a while, after 6 or so years of eating McDonald's, what do you think that fake meat is going to do? I'm sure we have all seen the videos of where it does not burn. Like the burger does not disintegrate. What do you think that's doing to your body? You're going to need more than a colon cleanse to get that stuff out. You see? So imagine what that's doing to your body right now. And if you decide to have a kid, and this is where it gets into an even deeper aspect of looking at the metaphysics of things, because you're able to really understand how things are affecting you and your child at the same time. But whenever we're looking at it in that light, what we have to understand is already our children are born in the future. If you decide to have if you decide to have a future, if you decide to have children, they're already born. They are waiting for you to bring them into being. And I'm not trying to talk, super deep or super philosophical or anything along that lines. But the point I'm trying to make is we need to take the proper steps now in the time that we do have to protect our children for the future, because they are the future. The reason why we're doing this is for the future, is for the investment, the legacy, the epigenetics, your heritage, whatever you would want to call it. Okay, everything we're doing right now is for the people that are to come. So if we're not trying to clean our body now, if we're not trying to have the best body that we can, so that our children can come into this world and live appropriate lives and live healthy, normal lives the same way that we were born, you see, we're not doing them justice. We're not doing our legacy justice. So understanding all these different things, all these different factors that come into play when we're looking at this slow degradation, this unilateral warfare on on the human body, on the image of God, we have to understand all the other things that get taken into place. You see. So let me get back here to this article. I went off on a tangent again. But basically, what they're trying to do is be able to replace the genes in you with synthetic biology. And I've talked about synthetic biology a number of times. But IGT is altogether different from traditional vaccination. It is instead a form of gene therapy. So what they're already trying to say is that by them being able to replace your immune system, because with the transhumanist mindset is where we're already flawed, and it's through science and technology that we'll find immortality. So if they're able to transfer our genes through this process, they consider it they consider it more modern and alternative gene therapy versus the vaccinations. And it might seem beneficial, and this is why they're doing these types of things now. That's why the vaccines have such a high kill rate, is so that we can do things along the lines of gene therapy. You see, scientists isolate the genes that produce powerful antibodies against certain diseases and then synthesize artificial versions. So, like I said, synthetic biology, artificial biology. The genes are placed into viruses and injected into human tissue, usually the muscle. Here's the punchline. The virus invades human cells with their DNA payloads, and then the synthetic gene is incorporated into the recipient's own DNA. If all goes well, the new genes instruct the cells to begin manufacturing powerful antibodies. So basically what we're saying is how they're able to replace the genes, the antibodies that you were naturally given through this IGT process, through this gene therapy process. Let me read that again. The synthetic gene is incorporated into the recipient's own DNA. Alteration of the human genetic makeup. Permanent alteration. And see, this is what I feel like people don't understand, is because if we're able to go one way, if we're able to do these things, it's all well and fine. It's fantastic. I definitely agree for it. I'm with it. But how do we get back? Can we go back? What does it mean whenever we have become so mutated, so altered, so transhuman that we no longer know what humanity is. You see? And that's one of the things that I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily take into consideration when we're looking at what's going on. Because it's all well and fine to augment yourself, right? To be better, to work out, to have a perfect body, you know, to be awesome, to know your potential. But what does it mean if you can't go back to where you were before? What does it mean if you can't revert back to your human state? You see? And I feel like that's where we are. Before you guys, I have a little bit of a meme where it talks about population reduction going unnoticed with the fluoride in the water. Big pharma, as I mentioned before, over 250,000 cancer deaths in the African American community since 1973. GMOs, Monsanto running rampant, pretty much destroying the crops, destroying the earth around it, and destroying, polluting the earth essentially. You know, Planned Parenthood, the abortuaries, things started by Margaret Sanger. It's ridiculous whenever you actually start going back and looking at some of the details and some of the history of all this stuff, because you start understanding how many different people are playing into this, and what they're really doing is they're feeding off of the ignorance of the American public. They're feeding off of the American taxpayers' money, because all we're really doing is furthering our enslavement. You see, vaccines, false flag terrorism, homosexuality, the Satan's extermination protocol, and the war on drugs, which is really the war on us. It goes unnoticed whenever it's done in a quiet and subtle way. And I don't mean to be rude, and I don't mean to be forceful with all this information, or at least this viewpoint, because you guys can choose to look at this as information if you'd like. But the reason why I'm trying to go at this in so many different levels is because we've got to look at the mind control that we've been under. We've got to look at the choices that we've been made, and we've got to look at the society that we're involved in. And of course, it's going to be scary trying to make these changes. But what's the alternative? What else should we do then? Because dying is not an option to me. So you know how I was talking about just the other day, 2 days ago, I put up an article May 18th about how vaccines will alter your DNA, right? That very same day, if you guys look right here, I put up this article where it talks about why scientists would want to build a human genome from the ground up. Basically what this is saying, basically what they're saying right here is these are the preemptive steps that they're taking to try to talk about human cloning, synthetic human beings, artificial humans, organic robotoids, humanoids, however you would want to look at it. We are now beginning the actual phases of living this humanoid reality, and that's whenever I want to point you guys right here in this section on my latest YouTube video, where you can see Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus looking like twins. You see. And the reason why I'm giving all these different variations of a very simple statement is to explain it in depth of all these different ways that these things are occurring. Sorry about that, guys. Very important call. My my co-host on my other show, 3 Minutes to Midnight, Lori, she's actually on Stranger Than Fiction News with Ron Johnson. I can't go on right now. I'm doing my own show, but I'll definitely check it out later. But back to this. The fact that scientists are trying to talk about designer babies, creating humans from the ground up, and all kinds of genetic modification. You see. So let me read a little bit from this article, and I have something strange I want to show you guys. Okay, because it's 2016. This is all strange, right? You know what's up with these human animal hybrids? Get out of here. But let's read from this. Last week's closed door meeting about creating genomes from scratch prompted a hand-wringing among scientists and other critics fearful of a future of lab-grown humans. Let me put a pause in that real quick. We're already living in this society. Fritz Springmeier even talks about this in his book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, where he's talking about clones, organic robotoids, and humanoids and all these other things. We're living in a world of almost lab-grown people, of lab-grown humans, you see. But such science fiction scenario is not what the work is all about. Researchers and entrepreneurs who have attended the meeting told Stat, synthesizing genomes should help scientists better understand the fundamentals of biology and disease, they said. Here, Stat looks at the promise and perils of building human genomes from the ground up. Why would scientists want to do this? Well, we won't really understand the genome until we can build it up from scratch. So what, like, and these are these technocrats I keep referring to, guys. These are the technocrats that I keep referring to. They won't understand unless they do it themselves. They won't understand unless they try to play God. And yeah, I know, I feel like I'm making a harsh jump, but think about it. Think about it. Is that natural? Is that what you would want? Would you want someone whose pockets are lined by Goldman Sachs, George Soros, David Rockefeller, anybody else of the 13 Illuminati bloodlines? Would you want those people giving you immortality, giving you synthetic immortality? Right here, I have a meme where it says scientists then, where they say, I must find the explanation for this phenomena and to truly understand nature, because there are so many different things going on that, well, that's why they wanted to stick to science, is because they would try to understand it. Scientists now, I must find the result that fits my narrative so I can get paid by my big pharma sponsor. And I have another article, of course, to help correlate that as well, that talks about that. That talks about how there are people that get paid to debunk. There are people here that are willing disinformation agents. And I'm not talking about Alex Jones. But I am talking about Alex Jones because he is. And I'm not going to go down a huge old Alex Jones bashing road, but I also had a recent episode on, or I made a guest appearance on the Sentinels of Truth show, where we had on the producer for the Pete Santilli show, where we talked about we talked about the assault against alternative media, how Pete Santilli is being treated, and all the other things that are going on in this community, and just how the infighting needs to stop, how we need to come together, how there's disinformation, man. We're being attacked, and playing into it is definitely not the way to see success. So it just blows my mind, to think that I just, I'm not going to go over it. I'm not going to go over it. Back to this study, back to talking about these things right here, right? So as I said before, who's one of the main proponents of all this death and chaos? Bill Gates. Manufacturing vaccines, making genetically modified mosquitoes, and then releasing them. Like, my God, do we need any more of an example? How many different things is this person going to do before we start realizing that he's trying to kill us and that we're under attack? I have a clip I want to play for you guys, and I muted it because no one wants to hear this sound. You see, no one wants to hear this, and you've probably seen this in my video before if you've checked out any of my crisis corners where I talk about anything that has to do with our genetics. But I've called it the mandatory vaccines, right? And I'll actually read to you guys. It says the United States requires infants to receive 26 vaccines. And you can see this child kicking and screaming as they're putting in another needle, dude. And this person's doing it like a machine. The baby's trying to fight him off, but yet more than 6 infants die per every 1,000 lives. In contrast, Sweden and Japan administer 12 vaccines to infants, the least amount. The report less than 3 deaths per 1,000 live births. So what is the theme been about this entire episode? What have we been talking about? How they're using this technology, not even technology, how they're using biology, biowarfare to attack us, creating mandatory vaccine, creating things and ways to depopulate us. You see, and there's no other way to get around it other than saying the truth. I mean, why are we hearing every other day about how somebody's dying? I had an episode earlier this week, either earlier this week. I'm not sure. I talk so much about this, but I had an episode earlier this week where I was talking about how one of a 13-year-old girl dying from an HPV vaccine. Chazelle Zaman dying from an HPV vaccine, and the doctor claiming that she was a lazy child. She'd gone in for Chazelle Zaman started suffering with a severe headache, vomiting, and dizziness a few days after having the cervical cancer vaccine, and her symptoms became so bad a few days later that her family took her to the hospital. Chazelle's family claims that the doctor dismissed that her condition was linked to the HPV vaccine jab, saying she, quote unquote, came across as a lazy child. And she diagnosed her illness as a stomach bug before sending her home. Her family strongly believed that there was a link between her death and the vaccination. So what we're talking about, as I said before, and I'm not sure if this is racial depopulation. It could have even just been a bad batch, but the fact that they even have bad batches going out consistently shows you that these people still don't care whether or not the adverse effects are happening to people. And what's getting even worse is whenever we're having to deal with it, with the after effects. I have another article I want you guys to check out. And like I said, this is all like within a 10-day period that all these crazy articles are coming up that I unintentionally did or did not see the trend. I'm not sure, but right here, by the year 2040, embryo selection could replace sex as the way most of us make babies. And the reason why Ray Kurzweil is coming out and saying these types of things is because of everything that I mentioned at the start of this episode, the epigenetic factors that they're hitting us on, the warfare, the genetic warfare that we're facing, you see. And it really gets to a point to where you're like, these people are insane. They are literally trying to assassinate us before we're even born. And I'll go over this article here in a second. But basically what they're trying to do, and if you've seen the movie Gattaca, you know where I'm about to go with this. This is where the term designer babies come into play. Selective growth, eugenics, transhumanism. That's why all these things are incorporated in this New World Order philosophy, this New World Order mindset, because they feel like, as I've said before at the start of this episode, in our current state, we are flawed. And it's through science and technology that we will become God. Little g. And it's insane. So this is why they're attacking us through our food, through our medicine, through our TV, through our spirits, through our technology, through everything. And that's why having clean, sound, sober mind is important. That's why it even talks about it in the Bible, because we're entering the days, or we're in the days, we're in the last days, we're in the days of turmoil. I have an entire segment of videos designed to educate you on some very harsh things called the crisis corner. It's like take what's going on and condense it so people can understand it, because we have so many different things going on. I'm like overwhelmed with the amount of videos I have to make, the work that I have to do because of them advancing their agenda, and you can feel it. So this is why we have to advance our own tactics. This is why we have to become better, because while they're trying to suppress us, while they're trying to put us down, we have to be the ones that fight back. We have to be the ones that not only have the moral high ground, but the knowledge base to fight back. I mean, I'm sure if you were to tell any of these things to anyone that was not paying attention to the world, they would not understand. And I'm sure there are people that are even listening now that probably don't understand it at this point in time. That might be because I'm not able to explain it the way that I should be, or because they're not ready to look at it that way. But regardless, these things are happening. Like if you can go to a Walgreens and get a flu shot while you're getting your groceries, that says something. I thought these were supposed to be specifically designed for the person. You see, so let me. I went off on a rant. Let me get back. Let me get back to this article. Human reproduction is about to undergo a radical shift. Embryo selection in connection with in vitro fertilization will help our species eliminate many genetic diseases, extend healthy lifespans, and enhance people's overall well-being. Within 20 years, I predict that it will supplant sex as the way large number of us conceive our children. But while the embryo selection revolution will do a lot of good, it will also raise thorny ethical questions about diversity, equality, and what it means to be human. Questions we are woefully unprepared to address. So let me run this down to you guys, or let me run it back for you. That's what I'm running through every time I'm talking about these types of things, these types of transhuman ideologies. You see, because as I said, as you read right here, where they're saying their whole idea is to, or what it will do is help our species eliminate many genetic diseases, extend healthy lifespans, and enhance people's overall well-being. See, as I said before, the transhumanist goal is what? That we are flawed in our current state, and that technology will redeem us. But even here it says it raises thorny ethical questions about diversity, equality, and what it means to be human. And if you, yeah, I don't, and we're not talking about the things that do make us human. We're not talking about the things that can advance us. We're not talking about how wonderful being a human is. And that is one of the things that I would like to do more of with this actual show. I was talking about somebody, or I was talking to this about somebody else the other day. Actually, no, this very morning. The fact that I literally have a show discussing all the different things that are unfolding across the entire world, but for some strange reason, we are unable to give 2 seconds of time to the person, or to God, or to be grateful for what we have, grateful for the life that we are living. Even though these are tumultuous times, it doesn't mean that we can't be appreciative of the life that we do have. There are thousands of people suffering, millions of people suffering, and it would do them all justice by being by living the life to the fullest, by being appreciative of what we do have. There's just so much. There really is just so much that it does get a little overwhelming, but you understand that there's more to your purpose, there's more to your life paying bills. And the minute you start asking questions and getting your own answers and being sufficient and content in your faith, in yourself, in your self-awareness, that's whenever you'll start seeing gains. That's whenever you'll start seeing the pluses happen. But I'm ranting again. Check this out, guys. And this is from the vault. You guys can actually check it out. Bill Gates admits vaccines are for depopulation. In September 2015, Agenda 21 was transformed into Agenda 2030. And this is where you hear me talk about it in a number of different fashions and a number of different ways. I'm trying to get to a point here that actually has a, let's see, just get right here. With this, the Vatican and Jerry Brown join the efforts of others depopulation advocates like Bill Gates. So what were they talking about before this? California governor worried that too many people exist. Interestingly, California Governor Jerry Brown might welcome such a depopulation agenda organized under a new world government. He recently tweeted about California having too many people, saying, quote, "At some point, how many people can we accommodate?" Governor Brown goes on to say that climate change is the reason the current drought is so much worse than anything they've seen in the past. Apparently, California has too many people, Governor Brown says, and that means California needs to be deliberately depopulated. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry about that, guys. It's always got to be something. I can never have a full show. You know, I maybe I maybe I should start praying more before shows instead of just like winging it last second and expecting it to work. I can pray for clarity and silence, but sorry about that. As I was talking about with Bill Gates and his depopulation, the fact that there are other advocates, these technocrats that are coming out agreeing with this transhumanist agenda, this depopulation agenda, right here. Bill Gates says vaccines can help reduce the world's population. And this is from, I didn't even mean to click this, but this is by Mike Adams, the health ranger of naturalnews.com. They always have great stuff. And this is where his COPSEC formula comes into play. And you've seen this talked about as well in other videos that I have. And I'll actually pull up that graphic for you guys here in a second. But basically what it is it's Bill Gates' depopulation formula. That's what I call it. And basically this is why we're hearing things like we need to get our carbon emissions down. We need to get our CO2 footprint down. We need to lower the temperature of the earth. There's all kinds of different terminology that these guys are using for the specific agenda, you see. And what it basically boils down to is them trying to use fancy words as to how they're going to kill us. And this is why even with this work and this particular topic and even the Agenda 2030 topic, I'm giving you this kind of material to save your life in the future, or to help us all start trying to save our lives collectively in the future, because they're going to start using this kind of terminology, these types of directives, this agenda, to start chastising us, to start coming after us. And that is the New World Order, okay? That the Agenda 2030, the United Nations signing it or directing it, and then all kinds of over 100 different nations agreeing with it, that is the New World Order, okay? So what is Bill Gates' COPSEC depopulation formula? Well, the P equals people, So it's CO2, the carbon emissions equals P times S times E times C. And the factors are P equals people, S equals the services that that person can do per person, or the services that person can do. The E is the energy that that person uh, creates per service, and the C is the carbon emission, the carbon dioxide that's used per energy unit. So basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get it down to zero. They're trying to basically have it to where we're not putting off anything, and the guise it'll be used for is sustainable development. Because right now they believe in our current, and this is even in the transhumanist aspect as well, our way of life is currently unsustainable. And this is why we see a number of really horrors whenever you look at it. And I'm trying to pull up a slide for you guys, but it doesn't seem to be wanting to work. But it's of the Disney characters, the Disney princesses, and living in real world, where you've got Jasmine in Syria. You know, she's covered. She could be covered in blood. Mulan having to wear a gas mask because of China's pollution, because of the air toxicity. Ariel, the mermaid, covered in oil, trying to crawl out from the ocean. The 101 Dalmatians locked up in some adoption kennel. Beauty and the Beast just trying to, well, Beauty from the Beauty and the Beast getting plastic surgery because she doesn't feel beautiful enough. Cinderella doing drugs, wandering down some sketchy hallway or some sketchy street. Pocahontas selling out her soul to the casino. I'm saying, and just there's too many of them, but it illustrates perfectly these things which are happening. And you guys might not see it that same way, but what what I'm talking about in large scale here really is eugenics. This is them literally trying to figure out a way to control the population, either through selective breeding, forced vaccination, forced termination, however you would want to call it. This is eugenics. I want to move on because I'm not hitting a wall, but I'm definitely hitting a point to where I just have to keep shaking my head. But Bill Gates admitting that it's for depopulation. True to the claims, vaccines given to young women have now been discovered to be intentionally laced with sterilization chemicals, according to the Kenya Catholic Doctors Association, a pro-vaccine organization funded in part by UNICEF. Similarly, a shocking 75% of the children given the vaccines in a small town in Mexico ended up hospitalized or dead after a recent round of vaccine shots that many have speculated might be part of a depopulation test run. Okay. So they have a few different ways, and this is part of the slow kill. Like I said, they're attacking us at an epigenetic level. They're attacking us they're trying to distort the image of God. And this is where I would like to kind of jump into chimeras, hybrids, Nephilim, transhumanists, whatever you would want to call them. And I know this is where people are going to say that stuff doesn't exist. You know, there's no way that could happen. Well, I'm going to call you a liar, and I'm going to ask you to challenge me because I have the documents. You know, I'm constantly putting out articles. I'm talking to people that have done some of the experiments. You were able to see some of the results. Like, come on, man. And it's very simple these days too. So for people to deny it, to act like this isn't happening, that shows the intellectual maturity of the individual. So by definition, what are chimeras? How and why are they produced? Chimeras are animals composed of cells that originate from two or more different species. In the research lab, chimeras are created by introducing cells from one species into the developing embryo or fetus of another. The name chimera actually comes from the Greek mythology and describes a creature with the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a serpent. The first chimeras helped scientists understand questions about developmental biology. A sheep-goat chimera created in 1984 had the head of a goat and the woolly coat of a sheep. Chicken quail chimeras have also been successfully developed. 1984, my friends. 1984, and that's how far back we're going on this. And if people don't really believe that chimeras can exist because, like the article says, or like the document says, it's just introducing cells from one species into the developing embryo or fetus of another. So basically, whenever something's developing, and because there's human-animal chimeras and there's animal-human chimeras, you've got to look at which one is the dominant trait, which is the one that has the primary genetic structure. Which one is it going to pull from? I'm sure we've all heard of spider goats, where they're trying to have a stronger or more durable version of the web that the spider would be able to produce. So all we're really doing is all they're doing is they're combining the genetics of two different creatures, and they're putting it together. I mean, for God's sakes, we're the generation that grew up with the understanding of a test tube baby. So I don't think introducing either more human DNA or even animal DNA or even synthetic biology to a degree would necessarily change things, you see. So I'm going to go to another article, and I'll jump back to this one as well. But or another piece of document that you guys can look at where we're talking about ethics and other things regarding chimeras and hybrids. And the only reason I'm going at the very top of this is so you guys can go back and check these things out, because I have them on my website. General considerations and definitions of various mixed entities, right? A chimera is defined in medicine and biology as an organism made of genetically diverse components, cells, tissues, or even organs, which nevertheless constitutes an unified individual. For the purpose of this broadly based definition, it is immaterial whether the various cells come from individuals of the same species, as in an intraspecies chimera, for instance, when an organism is transplanted from one human being to another, or from different species, interspecies, not intra, but interspecies chimeras, as in a xenotransplantation. Interspecies chimeras can arise from the transplanting of cells, tissues, and organs into an organism from a different species before and after birth, like we said, introducing new cells into the embryo at the developmental phase, or from the experimental fusion of embryos of different species. The Jeep, a goat-sheep chimera, is an example, as I mentioned earlier. In the latter case, the result is a mixture of which cells of the differing origin develop alongside each other throughout their prenatal phase. However, so far as known today, such an entity is fully capable of development only if the species are closely related. And this is what we're talking about this is what we understand whenever we're talking about ligers and donkeys, because these are, or is it donkeys or mules? I'm not sure. But the fact that they have a strong genetic mix, a strong similarity, and they're able to mix it, and that's all well and fine. But what we're doing now is we're breaching that. But I'll get into that in a second. A mammalian organism formed from the union of an egg and sperm cell, so that it is also a subsequent cell, have the same genetically mixed composition, is said to be a hybrid. In the case of an intraspecies hybrid, the eggs and the sperm come from parents of the same species. Strictly speaking, every natural process of reproduction thus results in a kind of hybrid. However, within the discipline of biology, the term is predominantly used only whenever the egg and sperm cells originate from parents of different species, interspecies hybrids, such as the mule. So it was the mule. Ha! It was the mule, which is a cross between a horse and a donkey. Sorry, I got excited, as I tend to do. I'm going to show you guys different types, or we're going to go over real quick different types of different types of, well, chimeras, different ways that these experiments are being conducted. And the reason I had to lead in with all these different things is so we could talk about so we could talk about how they're actually corrupting the genetic code, how they're corrupting the human image, the image of God. Because the only way these things are going to happen, and that's why I've talked about this before in other episodes, the only reason all this stuff is happening right now is because this is the season of chaos. This is the season of change. This is the perfect time for them to do this because everything is crazy right now. We live in a very amoral, immoral time. Nothing goes. Well, everything goes. Nothing has meaning, you see. So if that's the case, well, why don't we just alter our bodies? There's nothing else for us to do. I mean, we haven't even conquered the ocean, and we're not really sure whether or not space or other planets exist. So let's just destroy our bodies, you see. That's the mindset in which we're going about this. And that's also the same kind of mindset that these people at CERN are getting involved in too. But do not even get me started on CERN, human-animal hybrids, demons. Oh, man, that's a separate episode, guys. But check this out. Sheep-to-human organ transplant project. At the University of Nevada at Reno, researchers have added human stem cells to sheep fetuses to create chimeras that they hope will someday serve as a reliable source of organs for liver transplant patients. Some sheep now have livers with up to 80% human cells that can produce the compounds normally made by human livers. The cells are not all in distinct liver lobes, but spread throughout the tissue. The sheep also have human cells in their hearts and brains. And the reason why is so that they're able to produce the appropriate chemicals, the appropriate nutrients and things throughout the body to regulate these types of new introductions into the species, you see. And this is why we hear people talk about organ transplants through pigs. You're like, oh, well, you can get a pig transplant because, you know, their organs are similar. What they're doing, well, is they're mixing the species, of course, obviously. But basically what they're doing is they're downgrading us to the level of beast when we do this. We're not even talking about cross-genetic diseases and like I said before at the start of the episode, epigenetic factors that are taking place and a number of other things that are involved with just the simple distortion of our genetic makeup. Like I said before, we are just now starting to see the effects of radiation, bio warfare, Agent Orange and stuff like that, chemtrails, genetic modification, vaccines, all this other stuff. That's why autism is up so high. That's why obesity is up so high. That's why all these other things that are happening to people that are being born and people that have been born is because of these kinds of tinkerings. So we really have to look at the ethical questions that come with this. So right here, pigs to human organ transplants. So real quick before I go into this one, what we have to understand is that because these are new species that they're creating, humans have rights and animals have rights. Animals have rights even though we eat them. It's crazy. But developing these new species, they're not bound by the same societal laws that we are. They're not bound by. They don't have rights, so to speak. They're products, and I've talked about this before. Even with us, we need to really look at what happens whenever we get these vaccines and we have these types of adverse things happen to us. Are we someone's experiment? Who is your doctor? Can you trust them? Are they reporting on you? You know, because even now with the new Affordable Care Act, if your doctor thinks that you are, doctor-patient confidentiality is gone. If your doctor thinks that you are a potential threat or you're, you know, making anti-government statements or anything of the like, you know, your doctor legally and lawfully can report you. As I said before, doctor-patient confidentiality is out of the window. And I don't know how I got here, but the point I'm trying to make is that there are some things happening to where they're monitoring the effects that this depopulation agenda is having, while simultaneously trying to offer the alternative of through genetic modification, through technology, and through a number of other things. that we can be better because right now we are flawed. So let me go right here. Pigs to human organ transplant. Mayo Clinic researchers in Minnesota are studying how specially bred pigs can be used as sources of organs for human transplant patients. Part of their work involves determining the risk of transmitting pig diseases to humans who would receive the organs. And yeah, well, that's very important. That is very important. That is extraordinarily important. Cross species diseases is a big thing because look at what Zika is doing. As I said before, this is an irradiated, genetically modified superbug running rampant. Running rampant. And if we are unable to, if we're literally unable to combat it because of the way that it's mutated, because we've never been able to encounter it before, think about the kind of things that's going to happen or that's going to develop for us. They've developed a line of pigs that have pig blood cells, human blood cells, and a new kind of blood cells with characteristics of both humans and pigs. An unexpected development in this project may help researchers formulate an explanation for the appearance of AIDS virus in humans. So as I said before at the start of the show or sometime in between the show, with 250,000 African Americans being killed due to cancer, and what was it, roughly 2 million due to AIDS. Like it's ridiculous when you really start going back and start thinking about it, because that's how close this is. They're doing experiment. Do you guys know about the Tuskegee experiments? You see, so you really gotta look at all these different things that they're doing when they're trying to mess with us. So I just talked about how there are human to pig chimeras. Let me tell you guys something. And this is in a document. Like I said, you guys can check all this stuff out. Everything that I cover here. You can see this document, the Chimeras PDF, in the vault. On my website, boosh, right here in the transhumanism and genetic modification folder. I'm going to take you back to my website where I have an article pulled up where we're talking about just this: human to pig chimeras, human animal chimeras. And I put this up 2 days ago as well. That's what I'm saying, guys, is I didn't necessarily plan for this video to be made, but the fact that some of this correlating information, some of this transhumanist movement, some of this stuff is being so pushed that you have to put the pieces together to have people understand all the different things that are happening. So check this out. And this is on NPR. A handful of scientists around the United States are trying to do something that some people find disturbing, making embryos that are part human and part animal. And before I go on into this article, I want you guys to go back and check out one of my videos. It's on it's one of my transhumanism videos, and I think it's the human animal chimeras one, where I think in Louisiana or Mississippi, somewhere in the Southern Belt, a law is being passed to protect the human embryos. And I thought that was very, very strange, because that's a very particular part of the human body that's being guarded. Sorry, Freudian slip again. Guarded. And then in a few years later, we're now talking about how embryos are important. But as I said before, what we have to understand is what happened just last year at those abortuaries at Planned Parenthood. What happened with all those babies? And I'm not trying to draw a strange connection. I'm just saying we're literally giving them the material they need to conduct these types of strange experiments. 15.5 million babies aborted since 1973. Just going to let that sit in for you guys for a second. 15.5 million babies aborted since 1973. I'm just letting you guys know, because I'm really only trying to use the facts here. But let me go back to this. The researchers hope these embryos, known as chimeras, could eventually help save the lives of people with a wide range of diseases. So do you see how they're saying that aging is a disease, living is a disease, and anything we do is a disease to these people, but they can offer the solution. They will offer us the solution. You see, they're saying, well, right now you guys are all sick and diseasely. Give us these embryos and let us modify them so that we can, well, grow them up to full maturity, have them gestate for full maturity, and then, well, you guys will be able to learn from it, or your children will be able to learn from the cures that we're able to give them. But then you got to think, well, are these cures or more poisons? One way would be to use chimera embryos to create better animal models to study how human disease happens and how they progress. So why would we use chimera embryos to better animal models? You know, like why? Double language. Perhaps the boldest hope is to create farm animals that have human organs that can be transplanted into terminally ill patients. So a human farm, a place where they can literally just go grab some organs real quick. A human farm. But some scientists and bioethicists worry that the creation of these interspecies embryos crosses a line. Here we go with that word again. Interspecies embryos, not intraspecies, not where it's a human to human cells being transferred, but interspecies embryos crosses the line. Right? I'm sorry. You're getting into unsettling ground that I think is damaging to our sense of humanity, says Stuart Newman, a professor of cell biology and anatomy at the New York Medical College. The experiments are so sensitive that the National Institutes of Health have imposed a moratorium on funding them while officials explore the ethical issues they raise. Nevertheless, a small number of researchers are pursuing the work with private funding. Of course, they hope the results will convince the NIH to lift the moratorium. We're not trying to make a chimera just because we want to see some kind of monstrous creature, says Pablo Ross of a reproductive biologist at the University of California and UC Davis. We're doing this for a biomedical purpose. The NIH is expected to announce soon how it plans to handle requests for funding. Recently, Ross agreed to let me visit his lab for an unusual look at his research. During the visit, Ross demonstrated how he's trying to create a pancreas that could theoretically be transplanted into a patient with diabetes. The first step involves using new gene editing techniques to remove gene pig embryos needed to make a pancreas. So here, again, we have them talking about how they're going to use this kind of research to benefit us, and how they're going to increase our state of living, how things are going to be so great. It's going to be so awesome, how they're going to take care of us, and how we're all going to have these super cool splicered, genetically modified bodies, and it's going to be so great. But if you ever want to go back, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And so then this is where I would like to take you guys over to this article that I posted earlier this week as well. And the reason why I'm jumping back and forth in between these different articles is to illustrate to you guys how this has been talked about for quite some time, as I read before, in 1978, and how all these different things take place, how all these things come into consideration. So whenever I put up this picture, I had some jagoff talk about not jerk off, jag off. I wanted to say it like that for a reason. I had somebody say, "Oh, well, this is a sculpture." Well, I'm very well aware that this is a sculpture, but it's a very, very strange sculpture, and it came with the actual post. So please don't look at this simple picture and think, "Oh, well, this is the picture, this is the evidence." So clearly, ignorant. But check this out. And this is on truthandaction.org. I posted this 6 days ago. Like I said, guys, this is all within a 10-day span that all these articles have popped out. Okay. Human-animal chimeras now gestating on U.S. research farms. Science is roaring to new heights, and there appears to be no limit what they'll come up with next. Human-animal chimeras crossbreeds are now developing in hopes of growing limbs and organs that could be used to save a person's life. Although none of the crossbreed embryos have been brought to term yet, it is only a matter of time before we start seeing a striking resemblance between ourselves and pigs. One obvious concern lies within the argument of these animals developing human-like intelligence, sentience, life. The fact that we're giving it to them and we're using them as deposits, as transplants, as organ donors, as farm animals. Like it's ridiculous. So and we're giving them sentience, but we're also slaughtering them. There are way too many metaphysical implications with that to why that cannot happen. But let me get back to this article. One obvious concern lies with the argument of these animals developing human-like intelligence. If we're injecting animals with human DNA, should we expect a drastic change in the animal's biology? The research involving stem cells extracted from humans and injected in an animal embryo has been met with much scrutiny by the National Institute of Health, the foremost medical research center. Despite the ban on funding towards this particular medical advance, several research facilities across the country are still conducting experiments. The MIT Technology Review had this to say, quote, "The experiments rely on cutting-edge fusion of technologies, including the recent breakthroughs in stem cell technology and gene editing techniques. By modifying genes, scientists can now easily change the DNA in pig or sheep embryos so that they are genetically incapable of forming a specific tissue. Then, by adding stem cells from a person, they hope the human cells would take over the job of forming the missing organ, which could then be harvested from the animal for the use in transplant operation. The worry is that animals might turn out to be a little too human for comfort, say ending up with reproductive cells, patches of people hair, or just higher intelligence. We are not near the island of Dr. Moreau, but science moves fast." NIH ethicist David Resnick said during the agency's November meeting, quote, "The specter of an intelligent mouse stuck in a laboratory somewhere screaming, 'I want to get out,' would be very troubling to people." And this is where I would want to jump into the talk about synthetic biology. And I don't know if I'll have enough time to cover it as in depth as I would like to, but I'll try to summarize it. Let me read from this article first, and then I'll try to summarize it for you. A secret meeting to create synthetic human genome. While the project is still in the idea phase and also involves efforts to improve the DNA synthesis in general, it was discussed at there we go. That's probably why it didn't make sense. Sorry about that, guys. Secret meeting to create synthetic human genome. 60 trays can contain the entire human genome as 23,000 different fragments of cloned DNA. Scientists are now contemplating the fabrication of a human genome, meaning they would use chemicals to manufacture all the DNA contained in human chromosomes. Using chemicals to manufacture all the DNA contained in human chromosomes. The prospect is spurring both intrigue and concern in the life sciences community, because it might be possible, such as through cloning, to use a synthetic genome to create human beings without biological parents. So I'm sorry, I really don't want to sound like a broken record here, guys, but I have to read this again for you. The prospect is spurring both intrigue and concern in the life sciences community, because it might be possible, such as through cloning, to use a synthetic genome to create human beings without biological parents. Okay, so let me tell you what that means. Like I've consistently said before, what they're trying to do is create a race within a race. As I talked about at the start, throughout the show, how they need us. They need to base the things that they're doing off of us. They're trying to be H+, be better than. They're trying to augment the human race. They're trying to make us transhuman. They're trying to make us the X-Men. And this does sound fantastic and wonderful. What happens when we can't go back? How far are we willing to change? Because if I'm one person doing all this work, imagine if somebody put in work trying to be mixed with half of a cheetah. What do you think that's going to do not only to their family, for Nike, for the Olympics, for TV? You see, all of these different sociological implications come into play when we start looking at changing the image of human, changing the image of God, knocking God off of his pedestal, trying to replace him. And this is where we get back to the biblical prophecy of the Tower of Babel, where we're trying to replace our own gods there. We're trying to knock God off. Let me get back to this article. While the project is still in an idea phase and also involves efforts to improve DNA synthesis in general, it was discussed at a closed-door meeting on Tuesday at the Harvard Medical School in Boston. The nearly 150 attendees were told not to contact the news, media, or to post on Twitter during the meeting. Organizers said the project could have a big scientific payoff and would be a follow-up to the original Human Genome Project, which was aimed to reading the sequence of 3 billion chemical letters in the DNA blueprint of human life. The new project, by contrast, would involve not reading, but rather writing the human genome, synthesizing all 3 billion units for chemicals. So not like the Human Genome Project where they're trying to read all of the human genome, where they're trying to understand everything, to understand the letters and how everything works. No. What they're trying to do is write it. They're trying to make it. They're trying to create, as I've said before, their own race. Their own humans. And this is where you have to get into the metaphysical understanding, or the metaphysical perspective of what does it mean whenever we have people. These are the sons of man. What are we doing creating them? What is their purpose? Why are they here? You see, I'm trying to find for you guys I was looking into Harold Krautsweiler. I was doing work into looking into the programmable matter, black goo, the work that Nicholson 1968 does, and we'll actually be having him on the show as well to talk about some of these things. I think that's so cool. I really appreciate the work that he does. But Mr. Krautsweiler, I like his name. He was featured in a video when they were talking about programmable matter, synthetic biology, being able to compose life the same way people program computers and have code for computers is the same way they want to be able to write genetic code. It was Andrew Hessel. There we go. Let me see if I can find something for you guys. Find Mr. Andrew Hessel. And if you're wondering who he was, he is a researcher. He's a research scientist from the Bioprogrammable Matter Group. Programming life. Let's check this guy out real quick for you. And, you know, this is literally me recalling this right now, live on the air for you guys. So Andrew Hessel is a futurist and catalyst in biological technologies, helping industry, academics, and authorities better understand the changes happening in life sciences. He is this distinguished researcher with Autodesk in their BioNano research group based out of San Francisco. He is also the co-founder of the Pink Army Cooperative. Okay, the world's first cooperative biotechnology company, which is aiming to make open source viral therapies for cancer. Okay, so whenever I saw this man featured in the video with Harold Krautsweiler in discussing just this bioprogrammable matter biology, what he was basically talking about is how he wants to have information processors through chemicals, right? So whenever we're looking at synthetic biology, as I said before, what they would like to do, scientists are now contemplating the fabrication of a human genome, meaning they would use these chemicals to manufacture all the DNA contained in human chromosomes. Okay, what they're trying to do is have information processors in those chemicals. Imagine liquid. Imagine literally being able to run a liquid over something and then getting all the information that's over that thing that you ran. Say you would be able to run a liquid over a rock and it would be able to break down every single thing from how old it was to some of the things that it's recently been in contact with, this, that, and the third. And this is why we also saw Microsoft buying synthetic DNA, synthetic biology, for their microprocessors or for storage, because what it really is, and you've heard this before too. I'm sure people have heard this before. You can store information inside of crystals. It's like inside of a quartz crystal. It's like a terabyte of data. I'm not sure if that's the actual accurate space, but the fact is that we can use material to store data. We can use crystals, physical objects, to store digital data. What they're doing with synthetic biology is just that they are using physical material, except they're manufacturing this physical material to store data. Okay. And what does that boil down to? That boils down to replication. That boils down to creating life. That boils down to transhumanism, all kinds of different things. So basically what they're really trying to do is they want to have a word processor for life, composing DNA with a browser, the way that you're able to, the same way that you're able to 3D print organs. You see. So I want to, in closing, I'm going to say a few things, and I know I didn't even touch over half of the things I would like to get on, like a nuke threat on the southern border. The game warden in Texas issued a radioactive irradiation detector to all of the people there. Secret executive orders and DoD directives allow for illegal targeting and human experimentation, like all kinds of different things that help explain these types of things that are going on. I mean, check it out. And I knew this was going to happen. The $15 minimum wage forces Wendy's to introduce self-serving kiosks. The people that are fighting for the fight for 15, you guys are going to get hit with autonomous waiters, autonomous robots, people that are going to just take orders. I mean, you can order a pizza off of your phone. There's just so many different things that come into play when we're looking at this. I mean, look at this right here. This is the military fumigating in response to the Zika threat. And they're trying to say that chemtrails don't exist, but they're purposely spraying stuff in the streets. They're trying to fumigate bugs, as I said before, genetically modified, irradiated superbugs running rampant. And this is the response. And if it's not this, then it's the spraying of chemicals in the air. And that didn't work, so you have to go back. You see? So you have, and as I said before, I didn't even talk about the holistic doctors that have been dying. Dr. Curtis Clogston and Jerky Saturi. I know Sutari. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but the point I'm trying to make is like look at the health industry being under attack. But it's all well and fine because we have Obamacare. Right? Right here, confirmed. UN testimony proves geoengineering and chemtrails are just not a conspiracy theory. I'll actually reread this one on the air. For the record, Rosalind Peterson, president of the Agricultural Defense Coalition, addressed the United Nations about geoengineering, chemtrails, and weather modification. As a people, we have been used as testing agents while being lied to, told that we're simply being doused with water vapor while hundreds of thousands of people have suffered from a plethora of health issues ranging from neurological failure to reproductive issues and hormonal imbalances. And this is why we're seeing This is why you hear Prince even talk about it. The days that they spray, people being in a fervor, people just being angry, and the days that they don't spray, clarity coming back. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, autism rates on steroids. People freaking out. Like, there's a reason why they're spraying all these things so much. Why we're constantly bombarded by all this stuff. It's crazy. This is undeniable evidence that the chemtrails are covering our skies every day, and these chemtrails are not water vapor, otherwise known as contrails. They are full of pharmaceuticals, barium, nanoaluminum, coated fiberglass known as chaff, radioactive thorium, cadmium, chromium, nickel, desiccated blood, mold spores, and more. Peterson says the skies we are seeing every day are quote unquote not normal cloud cover. These are man-made. And for the record, this is exactly what I am talking about whenever we are looking at Agenda 2030 and climate change. This is man-made climate change with weather modification, cloud seeding, HARP, and all kinds of other crap that's going on. We are the reason why things are changing. Let me get back to this. She also describes more than 50 different chemtrail programs operating across the United States, carried out by private companies and government agencies. Her main complaint to the UN is that these programs affect agriculture without any public oversight, stating that, quote, you are going to start reducing crop production because of the impairment of the process of photosynthesis. But the implications of her statement reach much further than just how one industry is affected by chemtrail spraying. Agreed. This is depopulation. Like I said, they're affecting they're affecting the weather, they're affecting the people, they're affecting the ground, they're affecting our genetics. Like, they're dropping blood. They're trying to drop metals that tear into us, so that it's insane. You guys can check that out on the Daily Sheeple. Okay, right here as well. Ontario wants to force anti-vax parents to be re-educated. Okay. So that is insane. All over the Western world, governments are cracking down on parents who refuse to vaccinate their children. From California, where there was SB 277, where you can't even send your kids to daycare without them being vaccinated. It's true. It is now mandatory in California because of SB 277 that you have to send your child, or you have to have your child vaccinated before you send him to school. And to Australia, where low-income parents can lose their welfare if they don't take the jab. Governments are slowly eroding parental rights. Now, the Canadian province of Ontario is concocting a creepy scheme to gain compliance from parents who are suspicious of vaccines. Ontario already mandates vaccines for all children who attend public school and daycare centers, though philosophical exemptions still stand. But recently proposed additions to the Immunization of School Pupils Act seek to target the victims, or to target the vaccine, Freudian slip, target the vaccine exemptions that still remain. According to the bill, the amendment of the Immunization of School Pupils Act would require parents and guardians who are considering not immunizing their children for medical purposes to participate in an education session delivered by their public health unit. Parents or guardians would have to complete this session before obtaining a vaccine exemption. So basically, you would have to get authorization that you wouldn't want your child to be sprayed, or that you wouldn't want your child to be affected. You see. So there's a lot of different things that we have to take into consideration when we're looking at this. I made this video earlier this week, 3 days ago. The United Nations admitted geoengineering on a massive scale, and NASA scientists have also admitted that chemtrails exist. Whether or not they're chemtrails or contrails, why are they spraying us? And what this is basically doing is dehumanizing us. They're trying to kill us. And I think it's actually down here. Excuse me. I think it's down here where I posted the article, and it might be a few days old. It might not show up, but what it was NASA scientists admitting that there is chemtrailing going on. I wanted to stick to the 10-day mark so you guys could go back and look at this and not have to file through so much material. But right here, NASA heliophysicist admits chemtrails are real. Lithium is being sprayed on the populace, right? So again, we have more people talking about this genetic modification, geoengineering, weather modification, and all these other things that are going on. NASA heliophysicist Douglas E. Rowland of NASA Goddard Space Flight Center has admitted to the agency's current experimental programs using lithium and chemtrails to study the way that the wind blows in the upper atmosphere. Sure, yeah, totally. That's what we'll call it. The admission came after a concerned citizen picked up the phone to take action and called NASA. Rowland also said that the lithium was sprayed on the population in the experiments conducted in the 1970s and the 1990s by NASA. Well, we have to remember that NASA is a byproduct of the government. Lithium is a chemical element with the atomic number of 3. It's a rather soft silver white metal belonging to the alkali group and is a mood stabilizing drug by definition. Mood stabilizers, guys. They're using mood stabilizers on us, and they're admitting it. And they're admitting it. So that's what I'm talking about whenever I'm saying NASA is admitting the fact that they're doing these types of things. You see. So a number of things that I could just go on about for days that I pretty much have. And in closing, like I said, I really want you guys to check out this video where this lady pretty much comes out and exposes these things, exposes having to effectively vaccinate people, or give them the flu shot. Because, and I'm sorry to mix the two up, but the reason why I put them in the same category is because they could both be used for the same thing. You see. As a medical professional, inside information. Since the Affordable Care Act came out, they are required to ask. So I know I definitely went over a lot, guys. I know I definitely went over a lot, as I definitely try to do, to give you the information that you need. But the point I'm trying to make with all this is look at how hard they're pushing it. Oh, you guys are definitely not watching this video. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. My bad. Still learning a thing or two. I was trying to be cool. I was on a roll. But let me see if you guys can see this. Here's the video again for you. I think really, oh my God. I really think they just cut me out, guys. I think I've been going on for a cool minute, but they cut me off. So with that being said, please check out the website. Please look at the work I'm doing, and please try to get this message out there. I'm always going to be working, and I'm always going to be trying to get things better, and I'm also going to be trying to diversify the content. I can't believe this stuff happened again, especially after however long I had been going. But I want to thank you guys for tuning into it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll definitely have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.